Quick question. What do you think Stone Age humans did all day? If your answer involves non-stop hunting, constant danger, and a heroic struggle for survival from sunrise to sunset, I have some news for you. That is not what the evidence shows, at all. The actual picture of a typical Stone Age day is simultaneously more boring, more social, more interesting, and honestly more relatable than anything you have seen in a documentary. And one detail in particular is going to make you feel a lot better about how much time you spend doing nothing. What did Stone Age humans do all day? First, let us deal with the myth. The image most people have of Stone Age life is essentially an action movie. Constant hunting, constant danger, every waking moment a desperate race against predators, starvation, and the elements. Now, to be fair, some days were genuinely like that. A hunt gone wrong, a sudden storm, a confrontation with a rival group. Real, serious, occasionally fatal. But here's the thing. Those days were the exception, not the rule. Anthropological studies of modern hunter-gatherer groups, the closest living comparison we have to Stone Age life, consistently show something that might surprise you. On average, hunter-gatherers spend somewhere between 3 and 5 hours per day on what we would call work. 3 to 5 hours. The rest of the time, something else entirely. So what did a typical day actually look like? It probably started slowly. There were no alarm clocks, no commute, no morning meetings. Waking up happened gradually, around dawn, as the temperature shifted and the light changed. The fire from the night before would need attention, rebuilt or stoked before it died completely. People would eat whatever food was left from the previous day, or not if there was nothing left. Then, gradually, the group would begin to stir and figure out what the day required, not what the calendar said, not what a schedule demanded, just what does today actually need? That level of present-moment decision-making, by the way, is something modern productivity experts charge a lot of money to teach people. Stone Age humans just called it Tuesday. For most groups, most days, the main task was gathering. Not hunting, gathering. Plants, roots, tubers, berries, nuts, seeds, insects, anything edible that the landscape offered. And this was not as simple as it sounds. Knowing where to look required an extraordinary mental map of the local terrain, which plants grew where, when they were ready, which ones were safe, which ones were dangerous, how the seasonal patterns shifted year to year. A skilled gatherer was not just picking things off the ground. They were reading the landscape with a level of ecological literacy that most modern humans could not begin to replicate. It was also, by most accounts of people who have studied it, genuinely pleasant, quiet, social, done in small groups at a pace that was not particularly rushed. Here is the part nobody tells you. A significant portion of the Stone Age day was spent doing what we would now call hanging out, sitting together, talking, or the proto-language equivalent of talking, grooming each other, which sounds weird, but is actually one of the most important social bonding behaviors in primate species, including our own. Playing, telling stories around the fire. Researchers who study modern hunter-gatherer groups report that storytelling, in particular, is a major feature of daily life. Stories about hunts, about people, about the world, about things that happened and things that might happen. Sound familiar? The podcast, the group chat, the gossip session over lunch. These are not modern inventions. They are Stone Age technologies that we never stopped using. Now for the detail I promised you at the start. Stone Age humans rested a lot. Studies of both fossil evidence and modern hunter-gatherer groups suggest that midday rest was not laziness, it was standard practice, possibly essential. In hot climates, moving around in the middle of the day wastes energy and risks dangerous overheating. Resting during peak heat hours and being active in the cooler morning and evening is not just comfortable, it is energetically optimal. which means that the long afternoon nap, the desire to do absolutely nothing between noon and 3 o'clock, the feeling that you were simply not built for continuous productivity, you were right. You were not built for that. Nobody was. The 8-hour continuous workday is a very recent and arguably very stupid invention. Stone Age humans knew better.
When they were not gathering, resting, or socializing, tool maintenance and creation was a regular part of the day. Stone tools, spear points, scrapers, cutting edges needed to be made, sharpened, and replaced regularly. This was not a quick job. Napping a good stone point required selecting the right stone, understanding its fracture patterns, and then applying precise, controlled force to shape it without destroying it. A skilled napper could spend an hour producing a single point. Bone needles needed to be carved and smoothed. Hides needed to be worked. Cord needed to be twisted from plant fibers. These were not exciting tasks. They were the maintenance work of survival, done steadily, often while talking or listening to someone else, the same way modern people fold laundry while watching television. Children, as far as the evidence suggests, did what children have always done. They played, constantly. Researchers who study childhood development across cultures argue that play is not frivolous. It is how young humans learn to move, to socialize, to problem solve, to understand the world. Stone Age children would have learned to identify plants by handling them. They would have learned to track animals by following adults and then trying it themselves. They would have learned social rules by playing with each other and experiencing the consequences of getting those rules wrong. The classroom did not exist, but the education was happening constantly, in every game, every chase, every argument over a piece of food. Hunting, when it did happen, was not an everyday event for most groups. It was a coordinated effort that required planning, the right conditions, and sometimes days of tracking. A successful hunt could provide enough food for the entire group for multiple days, which partly explains why daily hunting was unnecessary and actually inefficient. Hunters would typically go out in small groups, sometimes following tracks for hours, sometimes setting up in positions near water sources where animals were likely to appear. The actual moment of the hunt, the chase, the kill, was often the shortest part. The butchering, carrying, and processing that followed could take far longer.
As the day wound down, the group would come back together. Food would be prepared and shared, cooking over fire, roasting meat or tubers, processing the day's gathered plants. The evening meal was almost certainly a communal event. Sharing food is one of the most consistent social behaviors in hunter-gatherer communities globally, not just because it is efficient, but because it reinforces the bonds that keep a group functioning. After eating, the fire kept everyone together after dark. And this is where the storytelling, the conversation, the laughter, and the interpersonal drama of group life really came into its own. Sleep in the Stone Age was almost certainly different from sleep today. Research into sleep patterns in groups without electric light suggests that the natural human sleep pattern is not one long 8-hour block. It is 2 shorter sleeps with a period of quiet wakefulness in between, sometimes used for reflection, conversation, or tending the fire. This 2-phase sleep pattern, called segmented sleep, was probably the norm for most of human history. The pressure to sleep in one continuous block is another modern invention. Like the continuous workday, it is something humans were not designed for and have been slightly miserable about ever since. Here is what a Stone Age day actually was in summary. A few hours of purposeful work, gathering, tool-making, processing food, some hunting when conditions were right, which was not every day, a large amount of rest, especially in the middle of the day, a large amount of social time, talking, grooming, playing, storytelling, and evenings around the fire that served as the social and cultural heart of the group. No commute, no inbox, no performance reviews, no meetings that could have been emails. By certain measures, the Stone Age workday was shorter, more varied, more social, and more physically appropriate than what most people experience today, which is either deeply reassuring or profoundly depressing, depending on your current Monday morning. There is something important in all of this that goes beyond curiosity about the past. The evidence from both archaeology and anthropology consistently suggests that humans evolved for a life with built-in rest, strong social bonds, varied physical activity, and meaningful work that had an obvious and immediate purpose. Most of the chronic stress, sleep dysfunction, and social isolation that modern people experience are not personal failures. They are the predictable result of living in a way that is radically different from the one our minds and bodies were shaped for. Stone Age humans did not have better lives in every sense. They died younger. They faced things we cannot imagine. But in some specific ways, the rhythm of the day, the depth of the social connections, the connection to the physical world, they had something we are still trying to figure out how to get back. 3 to 5 hours of work, significant rest, deep social connection, storytelling after dark, a two-phase sleep pattern that modern sleep scientists are only now beginning to take seriously. The Stone Age day was not a heroic struggle from dawn to dusk. It was a human day, with all the ordinariness, the companionship, the boredom, the laughter, and the quiet moments that have always been part of what it means to be alive, just without the commute. And honestly, they might have been onto something.